Hi, I am Contagion. Today we are reviewing the EOS RF 24 to 105mm RF STM lens. F4 to 7.1. This lens is an optional kit lens with the EOS RP camera. It came with the one I got when it was on sale, and as it turns out, it's on sale again. You can get the camera body by itself right now for $899 or $999 with this lens. If you wanted to buy this lens on its own, it is $400. Before we go any further though, I am going to say that I am not a professional photographer. I don't make any money doing this yet. And any photos I show you could probably be picked apart by a professional. I'm giving this review from the perspective of an amateur slash journeyman slash enthusiast who just enjoys taking photos that speak to me. So anyway, this lens, I will work back from my conclusion. My conclusion is that this is an excellent kit lens if you are getting into the R system, particularly if you are buying the EOS RP. This is a good lens to get with the camera for $100. I absolutely would not recommend, however, buying this lens on its own for $400. If you get any other R camera and you want a zoom lens, there is the 24 to 105 f4L, which costs a lot more. Or if you want to be smart about it, I would recommend adapting the 28 to 135mm EF lens. I've had that one in the past. Unfortunately, it got a bunch of dust in it because I was kind of cavalier with the situations I put it in. But it took some fantastic photos. Anyway, let's get into this lens. As you can see, the zoom causes it to extend out. I forgot, does it have a 7 or 8 blade aperture? I think it's 7. First things first, the pros. This is an extremely versatile lens, which is why it's a great kit lens. It's actually a step above any other Canon kit lens I've ever seen. Given that it has image stabilization and the really high zoom range on it, it's extremely versatile, and I think that's what a kit lens ought to be. You can do landscape really well, you can do good wide-angle pictures. It's okay for portraits, but you really gotta work with what you got here. I would recommend just zooming in and getting close, like as separating your subject from the background as much as possible to try and blur the background out. Another pro is that the images are very, very sharp. This lens takes some excellent pictures. I was extremely impressed with what I've got from it. The in-system camera aberration fixes make this lens a lot better than it would otherwise be. More technically inclined people than myself have been able to test that this, without those fixes, would have some crazy barrel distortion and other problems, but generally, the pictures come out just fine. Another pro of this lens is that it does macro photography. It has two different macro modes. The first is zoomed all the way in, and that is the one I recommend you use if you're trying to do any type of serious macro, because it allows you to stay a little farther from your subject. Pictured is our friend Gogeta using the fully zoomed in 105mm macro, and as you can see, you could get pretty darn close. The lens also has a zoomed out macro, which is more of a gimmick, because you will get within an inch of your subject. You get extremely close using the manual focusing on it. And here is a picture of Gogeta using that. Notice how the perspective has changed quite a bit, and it might be because I was holding the camera by hand and the angle changed as well, but generally with these pictures, using this mode, only what is in dead center will be focused, and everything around it will get very blurry really fast, even on a flat plane. That said, it does have a pretty cool effect, and you might be able to make use of it, but it's tough to use because lighting your subject with your lens that close is going to be very difficult, and even getting everything you want in focus will also be quite a challenge. That second picture of the close-up focus was at f22, which is this lens's max. Now let's get into the cons of this lens. This lens is slow. F4 only lasts a few millimeters. You get up to like 28 and it's already going to push up to f4.5. At the end of the zoom range, you're at f7.1. So this does not bode well for blurring your backgrounds, and it does not bode well for night photography. Now, the R cameras have wonderful high ISO performance, but you are going to have to bump ISOs up a lot, even with the image stabilization and slow shutter speeds on this camera. That said, it can still work, but it is definitely a trade-off. Another con is the lack of a manual focus switch, and that's a big one because there is a switch on here for focus and control, and that is for the control ring right here, which all RF lenses have. If you switch it to control, you can set it to do whatever you want. I have mine set for exposure compensation, but if you set it to focus, you still have to go into your camera and turn off autofocus, switch it to manual focus, which is a pain in the butt. It's buried in the EOS RP. You have to go to the camera setting 7th page, and from there you can turn it on and off. And from there, there's a bug that I've experienced several times where once you set it to manual, that option disappears from the menu, and the only way to get it back is not only to turn off the camera, but to detach the lens, reattach it, and then the option will once again appear for you to turn it back onto automatic focus. So that's a bit of a pain. I know that bug has been around for a while, but I have not seen a fix for it. And in my personal opinion, one of the biggest cons of this lens is, even though it's a great starter lens, artistically speaking, I feel it's a bit limiting. Because one of the biggest benefits of having a full frame camera is being able to get extra background blur, but how slow this lens is takes away from that benefit quite a bit. I would recommend getting a faster lens, which is why if you want this as the kit lens, it's perfect. But if you have the camera body and you want a comparable lens that will give you better background blur, that's why I suggested adapting the 28 to 135 millimeter. You'll get a broader zoom range as well as a faster lens. It's f5.6 completely zoomed in, which is a big difference in my opinion. So final thoughts: good lens to come with the camera. For $100, you can't beat it. Even with its faults, it's an excellent value at $100. This thing is versatile. It'll get you through a lot of situations. It's really good for zoomed out wide angle photography. It's got a great macro mode. It has its trick zoomed out macro mode. And all in all, it's decent. It can be a bit limiting, but it's an excellent starter lens. I would recommend getting the 35mm prime lens if you're going to have this as a kit lens. The two combined will get you covered through most situations. And yeah, that's what I've got to say about that. Hope you enjoyed the review. Hope it provided a little bit of insight. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I reply to most comments. My next review in the coming weeks will likely be the camera on which I am recording this, the EOS RP itself. Suffice it to say, spoiler alert, it's going to be a pretty positive review, but I do have a lot to say because the camera definitely is not for everyone, and the fact that it is for me does not mean it might be for you as well. Anyway, that's all. We'll talk about that another time. Hope you have a good one. Take care and be safe. Bye-bye.